Sish here from StampWithLorraine.com. Today I'll be sharing with you a card that brings double the wow factor to whoever receives it. Lucky them. So if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment if you like as well. Also visit StampWithLorraine.com and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. We're using the Blossoms and Bloom stamp set today, as well as the many layered blossoms dies, and these are the colors we're going to be using. I'll go over those a little bit later. So I'll put those aside for a minute. I'm going to be showing you a double Z card. Now, in the past, we've done some just regular Z cards, which open like this. A half fold on the front part, and then a little panel to just extend across the front a little bit. If you look at it sideways, you see that Z pattern, that little accordion pattern. So this is what would be called a single Z fold. So what we're doing today is a double Z fold. So this is the double Z fold where you have your outer part, which is that same Z. And instead of just having the panel in the front, you have a whole nother strip that creates a Z, but in the opposite direction. You can see it kind of folds inward where this folds outward. So it's really fun to do, and it gives a nice little extra something when somebody opens it up. Here are the dies that coordinate with the Blossoms and Blooms set. And if you remember, it has two large dies. One is your thicker pattern, the same flowers, the same design, but just a little bit thicker outline. And then the other one is it's a lot thinner and gives that little bit more detail. Oh, I'm getting tangled here. So they're really nice if you layer them, or you can use them individually. So you have those two big dies. We're going to be using the thicker one because we're going to be sponging over it. So we need a little bit more cardstock surface area to do that. And it comes with also the two small flowers in the detailed, the thinner part, and also the thicker part. You can see I already sponged some of these, so I'll use those a little bit later. So once you die cut this out, you're left with this. I'm going to put this on my silicone mat just so you can see it a little bit more easily. And what I need on this one, I don't need the whole thing, so we're going to cut part of it. And I'm saying, well, with this big die, I can actually get two out of there. So being the frugal person I am, I'm not just going to haphazardly chop away. So I said, oh, I could get two cards out of this. So I was looking around and said, okay, there are 5 flowers. If I can get 2.5 on each card, that would be awesome. So I'm kind of looking around, seeing where I could cut it straight across, because I need that to go across the bottom. So I want to try to find a place to cut it straight across. So one thing that helped me was using just a little piece of twine so that you can sort of eyeball, kind of set it up and see where would be a good place to cut. So I came across here. So I have 1, 2, and this half flower kind of in between these two leaves. And then this little guy can go there, or it could go here. So you can kind of decide where you want that to be. So to cut it straight across. So this is what was left over from what I cut here. So I'm going to demonstrate with that one. So here's the one I already did. Here's the other half. I'm going to start with Granny Apple Green and sponge the leaves. There are a couple of ways that you can apply your ink. The way we used to do it is squeeze your ink pad, open it up, and you have some ink inside there. You can take either your sponge or your sponge daubers, and we're going to just kind of dip into the ink on your palette, so to speak, whatever. If it's on the inside of the case, that's fine. I always test it out on my paper here to make sure it's not too heavy. You can always add more, but if you get on there too gloppy, then you really can't take it off. So I always start lighter, just kind of sponging on there. First I dab very lightly, as lightly as you can, and then you can always add a little bit more pressure and more ink as you go along. And the idea is that it's not also uniform. It's okay. That's the beauty of sponging. Some places will be more shaded than others. Sometimes on the edges you can see it kind of picks up that extra detail. Okay, you can see here I got a little bit stronger ink, so I'll just kind of try to blend that a little bit. Okay, then have a little bit of green over here. Do the same thing. And I wanted something summery and cheery. I know it's hot and a lot of people are thinking, try to get cool. A lot of people doing fall projects or Christmas cards yet. But I said, you know, I still like the summer colors and the summer flowers. Okay, so, well, isn't this a cool idea for a future card? I love how, as you're doing something, another idea pops into your head. So this would be a cool thing too. And that is a technique, using your stencils, your die cuts as a stencil. So that could be a neat project for another day. Oh, there's another leaf over here. Forgot to do him. So I'll get that on. We'll leave that one a little lighter for some interest. Okay, then I wanted some bright cheery colors to go with my gray granite background. So I'm using Daffodil Delight, and I'm using Mango Melody and Calypso Coral. And so, like I said, different ways you can pick up your ink. This one I squeeze onto the lid. This is in the old style stamp pad. Squeeze that one onto the lid, rather. But for these, I wanted to kind of keep these clean. And so another way you can do this is you can pick up the ink with your clear lucite block. So I'm just going to dab some of the Mango Melody there. And without getting too close to the other, I'm going to put some of my Calypso Coral there. So it's not dirtying your ink pads. Now I can close these up and keep them nice. And I'm just going to pick up my color from there. So I'm going to start with my lighter color first. And oh, I forgot this leaf. You guys should have told me. Haha. Okay, so let me add a little bit more there. Okay, there we go. Much better. Okay, onto the Daffodil Delight. If you're using your sponge daubers, good to label them, and then you can use the same ones for in the future. And you can find a little container or box to keep those in and keep them organized. Okay, so let's start with the Daffodil Delight. You can do different flowers, different colors. You can blend them. I'll do a little combination of each. It's kind of nice just to have variety because nature's like that. Flowers like that. One flower isn't exactly all the same color. So I'm going to keep that one kind of yellow. I'm going to add some yellow to this, and I'm going to blend some of the other colors onto it. So I always like to keep these right next to my ink so I know. This is the Calypso Coral, and this is the Mango Melody. I wrote Calypso Coral on there, meant to write Mango Melody, so I'll have to change that later. Okay, so dabbing here, going over a little bit. This side I'm going to try to make a little bit darker with just the mango. And this is very delicate, so you want to be careful. You're not pulling up the edges. Go in the direction of the loose ends. You want to go the opposite way. Okay, and this one, because it's the darkest color, make sure you tap off first. I'm going to add this one a little bit darker. Looks like a nice little garden scene. Different colors going on. Okay, maybe I'll add a little bit of that to the middle. Just for some contrast. Make that one a little darker than the others. Mix it up a little bit. So there you go. Isn't that pretty? We'll put it on this. There we go. So nice little rainbow of spectrum. While I have these out, I'm going to take a scrap strip and I'm going to use those same colors of the flowers to go across, because then we're going to die cut the little flowers out of there. So I'm going to start again with Daffodil Delight. For the little flowers, I found it was easier to add your color onto the paper and then die cut it, because they're just the flowers. It's not like you have leaves and other things to do. This one I definitely wanted the leaves to be the green, obviously, and then the color the flowers individually. Okay, so the mango, I'm going to overlap some. I'm going to leave some mango, so I have sort of a spectrum, and I can arrange my die cut flowers over that and have a variety of colors going on. So I have just the daffodil, I have the blend, and I have just the mango. Let's make this a little lighter here. Okay. Oops. And let's add more coral over here. Because this is a scrap paper, this was a fold here, so I want to be careful that I leave enough space to put my die cut that is not on the fold. I'm going to add a little more mango on the other side here, just to give a little more blended orangey color. Okay, so you could just make your spectrum of colors like that, and then you would take the dies and arrange them on here so you have a variety of colors. Die cut them out, which is what I already did. Right here, I'll take this out of the way. So I have all my flowers. They look really pretty. I thought, well, maybe I like the way they looked on the black, so that will be an idea for another card. Note to self: write down these ideas as they come to you, or otherwise, whew, they're gone. So many ideas out there. They just push the old ones out of the way. Okay, so this is what I have here. So now for the bases, you're going to start with your normal card as if you were doing it a long way, or with the folds. So you have a long way hot dog, they might say, or a vertical card. And then that gets scored in half. So you're starting off with your typical 4 1/4 by 11. Scoring that at 5 1/2. And then think of scoring the 5 1/2 again. That's 2 3/4. All right. And so that's going to just do your accordion, your Z fold like that. Okay, just make sure it goes down nice and tight with your bone folder. Okay, so that's cardstock 1. And then your DSP, you're going to cut your panels to fit the insides of those. So this is actually going to be the inside. So if this was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, your DSP is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, what you would typically put on a front layer. And then your smaller pieces, 2 1/2 by the 4. 4. So you have 2 of those. So eventually this will just fold up, and you see this still shows. Okay, so those are your panels there. I'll glue those on real quick. And I was trying to think of the colors I wanted for this card, and I kept gravitating toward these neutral tones, but I wanted the flowers to pop. And I said, oh, you know, this is the Peony Garden DSP, by the way, which came with the Petal Pink. So I worked with the Petal Pink. I said, no, I need something brighter and more summery. So I came across this palette of the yellow and orange tones. I said, you know what, I really like that with the gray granite. The gray granite is sort of a brownish gray. So it's just something a little different. I just love that. I thought the oranges go really nicely with that. Okay, so my background I wanted really subtle, and that was the other thing too. Some of the other things were just way too busy. I wanted the flowers to really stand out. Okay, so that's your base layer. Your next layer, this is going to be 3 inches, and it's going to be scored at 4 1/4 and 7. And then my inserts, of course, just 1/4 inch less than that. So you're looking at 2 3/4 by 4 for the big piece. And then the smaller pieces that you'll have sentiments on, or you can just put designs on, however you like. Of course, you're going to keep that 2 3/4 because it's shorter than the 3 inches, and this is going to be 2 1/2. So 2 of those at that. So that'll fit there. And let me just put this aside for a moment. Okay, so now this is just going to fit on the bottom edge of that. And it's your choice, since there is a little bit of room, it's your choice if you want to cut what hangs over there a little bit, or just let it be, because it isn't that much. And as long as it doesn't interrupt with the fold, you can just leave it. The bottom is cut even with the card, so there's no problem with cutting that. It's all up to you, as long as it doesn't get caught in the fold. So there are two ways that you can glue this on. This is fairly thick, so I can take my white glue and just, put some dots all over. Or you can use your sponge with your silicone mat, put a little glue here and use the sponge. I'll show you that technique real quick. Put a glob of glue. I have my glue in this, my sponge in this little thing. I have a little damp paper towel in there just so it doesn't stick to the bottom so much. Okay, and then without moving this, because you don't want to move it and get glue on the front, keep this nice and still. Dab your sponge in there and then just dab your glue on that. And what's most important is that you get the edges, especially these down here that aren't connected to anything. You don't want them catching on anything when somebody opens the card. I'll just dab that. And later on, when that glue dries, you can just peel it off. Just rub it off. It's great. Okay, so I'll put this over as far as I can. Oh, no. Silly me. Okay, we're going to put this on the white. Not thinking. Must be the heat. Okay, yep, looking at 85.5 degrees here. It's going up with the lights and me in here. Okay, there we go. Now that can be glued down onto the inner Z fold. Okay. And for this, I used my Stamparatus to make sure I got my sentiments nice and straight. Put my sentiment on there. Tuck this in here. I like to measure it. Use my grid paper to measure it so it's even between some of the grid lines. Hold it down with my magnets, and I use these lines to help center the saying. So when I found it in a good spot, put it on my Stamparatus here and ink that up. One thing that I find helpful, sometimes, see if this has happened to you, you go like this and you're inking up your stamp on your Stamparatus and you're getting ink all around here. That's not a big problem. It's not going to get onto your cardstock that you're stamping, because your magnets are going to still be higher and hold it up, but you still don't want to get it over your magnets and over other things, or if you touch it, it gets messy. So one thing that I find helps, I kind of look at it from the outside and put my pad underneath, and it gives me a little bit more perspective of where my stamp is and making sure I'm not getting too much. Okay, so then you just press that down and ink it up. So since I already did that, save a little time and pressure. Sometimes when you're under pressure, everything's going to go wrong. Alright, so I'm going to glue those down, then I will arrange my flowers on there. That just seemed to be a little easier on this section. Okay, that's there. And this is here. So when you have some things that have a lot of, you don't want to get this part a little messy if there's a little ink or glue on your fingers. As long as your surface is clean, good way to do it is flip it over and then rub it down here. You don't want to get your fingers caught up on anything, especially that has a little detail like the die cuts. Okay, so looking pretty like that. So then when you have your other pieces, you can just arrange them, decide how you want them to be. Mix up the colors a little bit. Okay, I think I had 6, but that's okay. 5 works. And then you can do the same thing. You can dab them with your sponge. And stick those on. And I kind of like how they overhang a little bit. So that's going to be my choice. getting just a little dry. So for these, I'm going to just use my glue straight on, just little tiny dots. That should be good. Maybe I'll put those two a little together or something different. Don't have to think too hard on it. You can be there forever thinking, oh, do I want it this way, that way? Sometimes just put them on and it's good. You look back at it later and say, oh, not bad. Okay, so it's a little sprinkling of flowers across there. So then you're going to attach that onto here. And it's going to, you're going to have your shorter sides on the left for your base, and you're going to have the shorter sides on the right for the insert. And you're going to fold it the opposite way. So it's going to be glued only partially. Only the front, the left half of this is going to be glued, so you don't want to put glue all the way in the back. You only want it to stick to here. So you're going to have to kind of keep that in mind as you're using your adhesive. And then all of this panel can get glued down. So I'm going to flatten these out a little bit. So when I lay this on, I'm going to get it pretty straight. So I just love this background of this paper. It's kind of a herringbone. And be careful when you have a subtle print like the herringbone. I like it going up and down. If you want it across, that's fine, but you will want to be consistent on that, I think. Okay, so I'm going to put first my adhesive on the back here, because I know this doesn't need to be too precise. I can just have the whole thing. I'm going to lay it down, because it's going to be pretty much centered around the whole base. Okay. I don't know, lately I've been doing things crooked, so I'm hoping I'm getting this pretty good right now. Okay, now on this side, I only want to do adhesive on the far left. So what I typically like to do is, since I know I can't fail by putting some adhesive here, I don't want to go too close over here. So I'm going to be a little skimpy on this side, but I'm going to put a little adhesive on this part, because I know I want this part to be adhered, have the glue on it. So that way I can't really miss too much. I won't go too far over here, and I won't go too far over here, but it will all be covered. So some there. Some there. Of course, you don't want to go too high. That just works for me. Everybody has their own technique, their own way of working. Okay, again, if you want to just turn it over, like I heard somebody say, give it a little back rub. Sounds good to me right now. Okay, so then when you pick it up, now you have your Z-fold. Okay, and when you put it down, because sometimes the score lines might be slightly, ever so slightly off when you're making them, you might have to readjust some of those scores. Not readjust, but give it a little better crease, because if it's slightly off, then this will make it better. So just a little extra there should do it. Got that, and there we go. There we have our card. So if you wanted to, you can just sign your signature there, put a message, or you can just put something on the back. So hope you like that technique, and I hope I see some of you making those. Oh, one thing that I did, if you want to kick it up a notch, I have these little, they are frosted clear epoxy, frosted and clear epoxy droplets. I put a couple on there to look like little dewdrops. I thought that was pretty. These are the frosted ones, because this was subtle. I didn't want anything too shiny or blingy. Wasn't that a great card? I just love it. It's one of my favorites. So if you'd like to stay in touch, visit me at stampwithlorraine.com, and you may also sign up for my mailing list right from the sidebar while you're there. See lots of ideas for different projects and Stampin' Up! News. And if you don't have a demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. So stay in touch. See you next time. Bye.